So 3 days later comes along, and I move in the temple. And the day before Srila Prabhupada arrives, we go to San Francisco Airport, and I see his airplane coming in, TWA jet. I immediately almost faint, I think. I cry, and I don't know why. Now I understand, of course, the reason why I was crying is because I hadn't seen him in so many lifetimes. And I wasn't aware of that then. And when all of a sudden I saw everybody getting on their hands and knees, and I thought to myself, oh my God, what would my family think of this? You know, here I am on my hands and knees. And I looked up, and there he was. Oh, well, needless to say, my life did change from that moment. I was initiated the next day. I was initiated the next day. Hey, everybody's getting initiated. I said, Tamal, you know, don't you got to get initiated too. I said, okay. It's like, you know, joining the country club or the fraternity. I don't know what it meant. So I was initiated. He gave me the name Sudama. That next day after that, he called me to his quarters. Govindadasi was his head secretary and servant, along with Purushottam and Kartikeya. So I went to have darshan. My first darshan was Srila Prabhupada, and he asked me what he had named me. And I reminded that it was Sudama, and he asked me, what do you do, Sudama? And I said, I'm an actor and a dancer from a very famous dancing and acting family. His eyes lit up and he went, oh, I played Hamlet once in Calcutta. And he handed me a play that Hayagriva had just written. It had to have been this thick, much too long, on the life of Lord Chaitanya. So he gave me the play, says, I want your opinion. Come back tomorrow. Oh, jeez, you know, I wasn't, you know, this big, this thick. So I went back the next day, and the first darshan instructed me, you do not have to change anything. In fact, he said to communicate through creativity affects the heart of people. That second darshan, Srila Prabhupada, he instructed me to use my talent to preach. Well, I was enamored. I was, 18, 19 years old. I told him I was on my way to India. He said, just see, India's come to you. Now you don't have to go so far. In fact, I didn't get there for another 6 years. That's how close it came to me. You know? I had my tickets in my hand to go to Bombay. But Lord Chaitanya had another plan. We went from San Francisco to Seattle. This time, Sri Govindadasi notices my talent for cleaning, and I'm always, you know, impeccable, and my chapatis blow up, and Kartikeya was very confused and not reliable. So Govindadasi was always pushing Srila Prabhupada to take me on board the Srila Prabhupada apartment camp. Okay. That meant no more brahmacharya ashrams, no more austerity in the sense of you know, hanging out with neophyte god brothers. I jumped at the opportunity and began my short but eternal career as, you know, looking after Srila Prabhupada. Garga Muni had obtained this apartment for him. There was a dump. Oh, tight Garga Muni, bless him. It was a dump. And Srila Prabhupada walks in with Govindadasi. Govindadasi also has a very interesting, blessed rasa relationship with Srila Prabhupada. She used to tell him, this will never do. And that was part of the requirement for being a good servant with Srila Prabhupada, is that you had to be almost parental with him because his health was not well. And so you had to have a heavy hand sometimes, which to most people is unthought of with Guru. It just so happens that Srila Prabhupada, because of our Gaudiya Sampradaya, so, and being a pure devotee, was so real that he identified his relationship with each individual devotee. And he expected you to respond. If you were going to be a debate, then he wanted to debate. If I wanted to cook and massage and make his home clean and nice always, he would give me that facility till I didn't want it any longer. Well, he comes into this place. Govindadasi says to Gargamuni, "This will never do. We have to find another location. Srila Prabhupada, what do you feel?" Prabhupada, Prabhupada's in Calcutta. This was, and Govindadasi says, no, I'm sorry. I have to put my foot down. So she and Gargamuni take off to go find another location. And I'm there with Srila Prabhupada. So there's a television in this place. So he says, turn the TV on. I was like, turn the TV on? Now, I only just joined a month ago. And I'm told, when I joined, oh, no, we don't do this, we don't do that, we don't do drugs. In fact, I remember taking my last LSD experience on my way to move into the temple. So I said, okay, I turned the television on. Because we were nothing there. I mean, we were chanting. He was always chanting. Somehow. So this washing machine commercial comes on. And the washing machine is agitating, and it's stick cartoon characters. And Prabhupada is almost on the floor, laughing hysterically. He said, oh, you Western people. He said, you make a box to wash your clothes in, and then you sell it for an exorbitant amount of money, and you have them assume characters. Kirby and Mrs. Kirby and well, we watched. I laughed, of course, frightfully. I laughed because I didn't know whether I should laugh or what. It wasn't until later on that I understood what my position was. In serving him, that is. So he was chuckling. So he wanted me to turn the station. So I turned the station. He wants more commercials. He thought that they were the most interesting, bizarre display of material life he'd ever seen. That they actually make film about sense gratification needs. Okay. Well, that was my first, I guess you would say, experience with Srila Prabhupada that was not in the mode of awe and reverence. One afternoon, I was bringing him, after he wakes up, his whatever he had, a little rasgula and something. And I started to enter the room. And the sun was going down, kind of. And he was looking, this room faced out on the backyard. And the whole room seemed purple and gold. There was this energy. And Srila Prabhupada was chanting and crying and crying. Tears of ecstasy. Well, I mean, far be it from me, we haven't even had nectar devotion yet. So I get alarmed. But I don't do anything. I back up. I back up out of the room with the tray. And I go to Govindadasi. I say, well, Govinda, what's happening? Is Prabhupada okay? Is he having a fit? She says, no. She said, that's just Srila Prabhupada having a relationship. That's Krishna consciousness, Sudama. I said, phew, wow. Well, I went back in about 5 minutes later. Srila Prabhupada said he still was there. And he stopped me from leaving this time and said, Sudama, don't leave. I'm crying because of the mercy of my Guru Maharaj, that I am allowed, by his mercy, to see Krishna, which I see right very now as we speak, over these grasses. Oh man, it was so heavy that I started crying. He said, why are you crying? Oh God. Because I said to him, you are so powerful and merciful. I've never met a soul like you. And he said, that is Krishna's arrangement. He, at that time, told me that he saw Krishna as a cowherd boy. Another thing that I don't know from cowherd boys to anything. I just know him. That was my life. So if he said so, okay. And he talked about how beautiful the grass was, and how fortunate he was to have the mercy of his Guru Maharaj. The very same house, the very same week, he had me call Tamal and a whole group of others. Hansaduta and Himavati had just flown into town. He was asking for sannyas. This is way before this was fashionable, which he always did ask for sannyas. So we all go to Srila Prabhupada's room. Purushottam, I can't remember, Himavati, Hansaduta, Tamal, Dayananda, and his wife, who began the LA temple, Nandarani, and we enter Srila Prabhupada's room. Again, this was in the afternoon. Oh boy, and Srila Prabhupada is sitting at his desk, crying and chanting. Tears are flowing down his face. And we all enter the room, and we're not aware of this because, we're just aware of ourselves. And we pay our obeisances and sit up. There's Srila Prabhupada, crying. And Hansaduta said, all glories to you, Srila Prabhupada. Swamiji, I think we called him. And we all started crying. And this was a mystic power possessed by the pure devotee to allow neophytes at our level to take us in. We were all crying, and we had no idea why. We just felt this overwhelming mercy. We fell down again and paid obeisances. We hear Srila Prabhupada's voice say, why you are crying? Sit up. And we said to him, Srila Prabhupada, we're crying because to watch you like this is, you are so merciful. No, he said. Is my Guru Maharaj, once again, who's by his mercy I've been nothing. Well, these were my first lessons of the acceptance of a pure devotee of the Guru. So we arrive at the temple, and I had this huge portrait of Srila Prabhupada in the anteroom where you take your shoes off. Well, he hit the ceiling. Even you, he said, have become infected. I said, what? Srila Prabhupada? He says, yes, I can see it. And he chastised me for like 2 hours. So many discrepancies, he said, I see here. Okay. Well, I'm crushed, needless to say. And then he attacked. He says, and you have not made devotees. Oh my God. Well, that was like my worst nightmare, because that's what I always heard from my other GBC, because I was one of the first GBC peers was, come on, Sudama, what are you doing over there? Well, Japan is not an easy cookie to open. Srila Prabhupada told me that, Sudama, you have been a Japanese in your previous life. I learned fluently to speak and think and dream in Japanese in a year. It was very bizarre. Of course, I had to go to college, get a little help, but grammar. The next day was Vyas Puj. So this was really the initial Vyas Puj that everyone follows in ISKCON, even if they do it today. We were taught in Tokyo. Prior to that, we all had it wrong, incorrect. Srila Prabhupada arrives at the temple. I had done something blunderous, like had the whole, I don't know, I was just improvising the ceremony, I don't know. Srila Prabhupada sits on the Vyasasan, there's a guest here, and he goes off with anger. How dare you bring me here? And this is to all of us. How dare you bring me here? How do you insult the spiritual master? Oh, he was really. And we were in, what could we say? The place you could hear a pin drop. I was embarrassed. I cried. I went out. I left the room. I cried. I displeased him. I go back into the temple room. Teeny little. I mean, the temple room wasn't even as big as this. He says, I have some pictures, photographs for you. You can maybe use. He says, all right. Tomorrow, we will observe Vyas Puj the correct way. I will instruct. Now take me home. He was pissed. Well, sure enough, the next day, that evening, he told me what I needed to get. The next day he came in. We all did it all over again, just the way we have done it for years now. And he lectured on the spiritual master's mercy. No kidding. That evening, he got a phone call from New Vrindavan, from Hari Griva, stating that Vishnu Jan and Subal and Gargamuni and Brahmananda had kind of, the heat of the mugginess of West Virginia had gotten to them. And they had upset a great many devotees who were leaving because they were preaching that Srila Prabhupada was the speaker of the Gita, or something to a kinship with that. And Srila Prabhupada was relieved. He said, finally the bubble has broken. I knew, he said, that my godbrothers were behind this. And the result of this is that they have been listening, these others, to Achyutananda. It was deeper than just he's the speaker of the Gita, that we were not qualified to worship Radha Krishna in the Western world because we were milechas. Little did we know just how insidious and power-hungry and envious Prabhupada's godbrothers were, because Srila Prabhupada happened to be the one to begin the fructification of Lord Chaitanya's prediction. Every town and village. The rest of them, Tirtha couldn't even do it in London. He had to come back. Here we got, 6 or 8, white girls and boys going and chanting and turning all of London out. In all of Europe, for that matter. Anyway, he was glad that they had done this, because now he wanted them to go out and preach. They couldn't stay in temples for too long, and they had to use the temple, the books. They get the books from the temple, but they couldn't lecture, and they had to go preach it. And that's what they did. They split up. Brahmananda and Gargamuni, they went down south, Florida, I don't know. This was their penance. And Srila Prabhupada got ready to leave Tokyo to go, this has got to be 1971, to go to India. He said, now I have opened the West. He said, this is my personal program to take my white dancing elephants. My first lesson of making halva on my alone was at 2 in the morning when Harigriva arrived suddenly from New York. Srila Prabhupada said, Sudama, go make halva. Well, I'd never made halva. I didn't, Well, fortunately, I made it correctly, if not too sweet. But not to mess with Prabhupada. He told me, ooh, Krishna likes this. He says, I know. You have made this very sweet. He said, that's why he is Bhagavad. Because he is the butter thief. He is taken from the kitchen. He likes the sweetness. He says, Sudama, you have a knack for this. You should make more sweets. I said, yes, but Srila Prabhupada, I don't have the patience for sweets, for sweet making. He says, yes, we have to preach in this age. Go out and chant Hare Krishna. Never mind Rasgula and Rasamalai, and who has time for this? Then he looks at Harigriva, myself, and Govinda Das. He says, but they're so nectar. Hurry, go make it, he told me. So I came back, we all sat there and ate halva at 2 in the morning. He says, you should always have foodstuffs ready when a friend comes or others come. No matter what time they arrive, you make something. He said, that is the Vaishnava way. Srila Prabhupada saw me come in. I paid my obeisances, and he just jumped all over me. What is this? Why you have left? Why you are dressed like that? He asked me all of the questions. All of the questions. For 20 minutes, I was sweating, crying, very upset, very confused, very on edge, very on trial in front of all of these godbrothers of mine who were really strangers. My men had been stolen. I was left up. Basically, it was, I got too big of a temple. It's the old politics game. And one way to get you out is, pull the rug, pull the plug, and can't pay the bills, and something goes. Either you go or the temple goes, or so. Srila Prabhupada said, I want to know one thing before I send you out of here. Do you still love Krishna? Do you believe in Krishna? And I said, yes. He said, all right, you'll be okay. Then he turns to everybody in the room and he says, this is disgusting. This is not how Vaishnavas behave. You knew that Sudama needed help. You knew that Sudama was crying out in Maya, and you let him sit in the corner and ignored him. This is not Vaishnava behavior. A true Vaishnava, he said, would take him by the hand earlier on so that this would never have taken place. He did talk about once to me in Berkeley about his leaving. And I didn't deal with this well. I didn't want to hear this. As far as I was concerned, he was living forever, which he does. But he was talking about Shiksha, Diksha Guru, and the position therein thereof. I was totally confused. I said, Srila Prabhupada, all I know is you. Now you're saying there's another kind of guru? What is this? Wait. He said, no. He chuckled. And he explained it to me. And he told me at that time, when you do not see me here physically, always listen for me. I will instruct you through the bodies of others from time to time. Well, I don't want to discuss death. Although that's 99% of our process is chanting Hare Krishna, preparing for the moment of death, so we can become liberated, go on. He said, always listen for me. I said, well, what does that mean, Srila Prabhupada? If a dog barks, what do you say? He said, just what I said. Anyone. It can be anyone. Srila Prabhupada told me that once on a morning walk. He said, if you think you have become spiritually advanced and you start acting a role, you'll become mad. That's where he said, I understand lips, milk touched by the lips of a serpent causes poisonous effects. Simply follow my instruction. Where's your Srila Prabhupada? If you're not here, what am I? Listen for me. Now, he's given other people the instruction to read his books. He's in his books. I know good and well he is. Also, I was just never a big reader. You see. In Hawaii, I went to him and I was in tears. I said, they all criticize me. I don't chant Sanskrit enough, they tell me. I don't quote slokas. Srila Prabhupada laughed. He said, sounds like my godbrothers. He said, Sudama, you speak from your heart. That's all that counts. Krishna doesn't care that you can't quote slokas. He said, you speak from your heart, and you are a darn good preacher. You bring many people because of your heart. I said, I've only read Nectar of Devotion twice, Bhagavad-gita 10 times, and that's it. I can't even finish the first canto of the Bhagavatam. You know. He said, so? You cook samosas. You chant beautifully. You have love for Krishna. What else is needed? So he said, don't make things so complicated. It's very simple. Karuna Prachu